Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Doherty.
And I'm Karen Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next.
Hi, everybody, and welcome. If this is your first time here, or welcome back if you've been here before. I'm Karen Arnold, here with Kelly Doherty, and today, Adam Greenbaum. So we're very happy to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we are too. We're kind of going into a little bit of a different topic, but a really important one for so many people. This is going to be part of the F finding in our framework. And I think that'll be pretty evident once we start talking. So Adam, I'm going to just jump right in. We usually like to give our guest's bio just to give everybody some background about who you are. So Adam built Whisker Cloud, now part of Pet Desk, into a platform powering 10,000 plus veterinary clinics worldwide. When his Boston Terrier Baxter passed away in October of 2024, Adam turned his grief into purpose and founded Love Baxter, now the world's largest pet end-of-life resource. His mission: give every pet a calm, dignified farewell by connecting devoted pet parents with compassionate professionals. So, Adam, thank you for being here. Kelly and I are both pet people, dog people, so this is definitely going to, resonate with us for sure.
It goes deeper than that. We're both Boston Terrier people.
Oh, well, yeah.
I typically have my Boston Terrier hat on as well. But yeah, there's dog people and then there's Boston Terrier people. We're just a different level of crazy dog people. Yeah.
Oh, yes, we are. Well, thank you, Adam, for being here. I mean, so we connected because Adam reached out to me when he started Love Baxter to be part of the platform as a grief counselor. And I instantly emailed him back because he had a Boston Terrier. And we chatted back and forth a little bit about that. And so I would love for you to share a little bit about Baxter with us.
Yeah. What's funny is every time someone asked me that question, I felt like a little like emotional, like the moment you asked that. I mean, we're going on almost 15 months without him, which is wild to me because there are moments when it feels like he was here yesterday. And then there's moments where I'm like, I've not seen him in 10 years. And that's hard. He was great. I mean, I have a Boston Terrier upstairs named Sophie. She turned 16 in April, and she's my baby. And I've had her. I had her almost 2 years before Baxter, and I ran the Las Vegas Boston Terrier Rescue. I ran a website called iBoston Terrier, and I got an email one day from a guy who said, "I have this Boston Terrier puppy. It won't shut up. Can you come to my house and take a look?" And I lived in Las Vegas, and it was June, and I get to this guy's house with Sophie, and he has this little brown and white Boston Terrier in a cardboard box that's full of pee and poop, and he looked like he was going to die. And I looked at him. I said, "Yeah, I'm not leaving without this dog." He said, "Well, just give me some training tips." I said, "No. We're beyond that. I'm not leaving without the dog." We kind of go back and forth. I won't say everything that was said, but basically we got to the point where it was like, "All right, $500, he's yours." I went to the bank, got the money, which I barely had, and I took Baxter home. And he was super underweight. He was sick. He was born with like a half toe in the back right foot. He was just a mess. And I gave him a bath, and he spent his whole life, like, that was a very meaningful day for him and for me. And he spent his whole life like he was fully aware of what happened that day. And I've been on my own since I was 16, so I was working, doing everything I could to survive and take care of Sophie. And now I have this whole other dog that I have to feed, that I had, you need a lot of veterinary care, and it just didn't matter. So he and I had a special bond. Me and Sophie have a special bond, but I mean, he was just great. He was funny. They were with me. I moved to Denver. I was just a single guy with two dogs, and, started my life there. I built my company. I met my wife, and, I have different relationships. I always say that Sophie's my baby. She's just a big, stubborn butthead Boston Terrier. And she's just like, when she wants something at this point in her age, in her life, she can barely hear it. She just walks over and like punches the couch. I'm hungry, punch the couch. I have to pee, punch the wall, punch the door. But Bax, we just had this bond where, I worked a lot of hours when I was building my companies. And I mean, he would sleep so soundly next to me. He had to be touching me at all times. He had very, very bad separation anxiety, and he had to be next to me at all times. And, I'd wake up at 4 in the morning and walk into our guest room to go work back in those days. And I would barely move in bed. He'd be like, "We're up. Okay, let's go." And he would just follow me everywhere. We just had this bond, that was great. And, losing him was really hard. He was 12 and a half and he was fine. And then he was gone so quick. And I wasn't happy about the communication. I mean, we fought to the death. We spent like $35,000, you know, being in my position in the veterinary world is hardly a flex. When you're 16, no one says like, I want to be one of the most well-known people in the veterinary world. I wasn't like building AI or video games or cool stuff, but I was able to talk to every vet on earth with his diagnostics. And I mean, I had so many people working around the clock for him. And we've talked to a lot of vets, and I've talked to a lot of people who said he wouldn't have made it a month if I wasn't doing all those things. And I'm positive he shouldn't have made it more than a month, but he fought for about 6 months. And I really think he did it he didn't want to leave us. So, it's hard without him. It was really hard right after. I struggled more than I've struggled with anything in my life. And I had a pretty bad childhood. So, it was just, yeah, he was the best. I could go on and on and on, but he was just the best guy I've ever known.
Boston Terriers, they are special and they're so stubborn though. And but they just bring so much love. All dogs, all
Yeah.
animals, I think, all pets, they are a family member to so many people, and they bring us this unconditional love that I think people can't even give us.
Yep.
And I think that's what makes it so difficult. And pet loss is what we call a disenfranchised grief. And what that means is it's not always accepted by society. It tends to be minimized, or you hear the statements, well, you can just get another dog,
Yeah.
or, those things that are just not helpful.
Yep.
And, so I love being able to share Love Baxter with grieving people that are navigating this pet loss, to help them feel less alone and to know what they're feeling is normal and it's okay and their grief is valid. Some people even say that their pet loss is harder than a human loss. And it's because of the relationship. It's that connection. I always say that they're the best teachers of mindfulness.
Yeah.
You leave the house for a minute, you come back in because you forgot something, and they act like, "Oh my gosh, you're home." You've been gone for a minute, right? But they're just so happy to see you. And, you know, our Boomer, he was our Boston. He died a few years ago, and, we did a lot. I mean, the water therapy we took him to, all these things, desperate to try to give him a quality of life. And I think for Boomer as well, he wasn't going to make the decision.
Yeah.
We had to make that decision, which was the hardest decision, to know when. But his quality of life, it wasn't fair to him anymore. And so I'm really grateful we chose an at home euthanasia
Yeah. So
vet.
much.
And so that was really nice to have him be able to be here in our home. And so, how are you navigating it now, being 15 months out?
Yeah. It truly does come in waves. I tell people I don't have a relationship with my parents. I didn't have a relationship with grandparents. So, growing up, the loss that is normal for a lot of people, losing a grandparent, losing an uncle, even at my age, parents probably shouldn't be around. And I never dealt with that. So, you know, uh, obviously I knew people who passed away and, family, friends, and things like that. But in terms of a death, I mean, it really sent me into a spiral. I am a pretty level headed person, built, this is my third company. Built the first two and had a lot of success. And I mean, I left my company. I had every blood work and every medical test on earth done on myself and my wife because I just had this like existential crisis. And yeah, it was odd. How am I doing 15 months later? Um, you know, it's interesting because I'm not a sentimental person at all, especially about physical things. But his stuff around the house, I have like rituals with it. And it's weird. Like, I'm not a religious or spiritual person, but I still talk to him every single day. I have not missed a day of talking to him. Um, yeah, it's, building Love Baxter is nice because it really keeps his memory alive. And, we've done things like, um, Kelly's seen it. We did a video of how we celebrated him on the 1 year anniversary of his death. And, we still take care of shelter animals and do things in his honor, and, the whole Love Baxter thing. Now you have, last month, between the website and all of our social platforms, we reached almost 3 million people. And they all, for the most part, get to know, okay, this is Love Baxter. Who is Baxter? And they get to go learn about him and see photos of him. So that's really cool. This dog that was in a cardboard box, discarded, was purchased from a breeder in Oklahoma, flown to Las Vegas at 6 weeks old, and then put into a cardboard box in someone's backyard in Las Vegas in the summer. Uh, no one should have ever known his story because he should have died in that box. And yet he lived this amazing life. He had friends, people knew him, people in the neighborhood knew him, and he had a story. And it's kind of cool that, this platform gets to keep his story going, which is just crazy. But I can't think of a better person on earth who deserves it.
Looking for a grief community that actually feels supportive, not overwhelming? We built one. The Grief Ladies community on Facebook is a private, free space where you can connect with others who are navigating life after someone they love has died. Inside, you'll find weekly prompts, practical tools, conversations that feel real, not sugar-coated, and a place where your person is honored. If you want steady support in a community that understands what your days look like right now, come join us. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook or tap the link in our bio.
Well, I think one thing to help, some people understand the loss a little bit better, I always talk about like proximity, because I think there's expectations about how we're supposed to feel based on who a person was in our life. And there are times that we may feel a really strong grief for a person, maybe like our neighbor. And I remember when I would do like general grief groups, and you can kind of sense that people are making comparisons to their grief to other people's grief, but it's how much of an impact has this person had or this pet on your day to day life. And the thing about a pet is that they're always there. They're at your feet, they're sleeping with you, you're responsible for them, you're taking care of them. Sometimes the guilt that can come after because people feel so responsible for their pets. So there's a lot that really does come with it. And they're just a huge part of our minute to minute and our day to day. One thing that I come across a lot as well is pet loss, but also pet loss following the loss of somebody else. Oftentimes, I meet a person because they've lost their spouse. And then an amount of time passes, a couple months, maybe a couple of years, but maybe then they lose their husband's favorite cat or their husband's dog that follow him. And it just feels like this loss all over again. So there's like another layer that goes along with that. So it's like, it's always more than, as we sort of trying to explain, and Kelly was talking about that disenfranchised part of this grief. It can be really complicated for some people. So, Adam, because I know Kelly's more familiar with some of what you do, but can you tell me a little bit more about Love Baxter and some of the support that you offer?
Yeah, and by the way, the scenario you just explained, I met a woman this morning who went through that.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and lost her husband and then the cat, and it's scary stuff. So,
It is.
um, you know, when Baxter passed away, he died on October 28th. It was a Monday morning, and I took 2 weeks off from work, and I found myself searching things in a million years, me, the person, would never search. I was searching for proof of life after death, proof of the afterlife. What do different religions think about pets in the afterlife? Like, I was just searching for something that would make me feel better. But beyond that, I was just searching for, like, dealing with physical pain after loss. I mean, the physical pain I felt was felt like I got hit by a car. I didn't eat for a few days.
Mm.
My wife was worried about me, and I was like searching because I was cognizant enough to know I'm I'm doing very bad right now. Something's like really not right, and I've never felt like this. So, but I didn't find anything. So that was sort of the first seed that's like, I found Reddit. But then here's the problem. There's the pet loss forum on Reddit, which is great. But it was really just a place for people to scream into the void. 95% of the posts were someone posting or asking a question with no responses or cookie cutter responses. And here I am working in the veterinary space for years, where the average vet hospital does 4 to 6 euthanasias a day. And when you signed up for our software, you had to fill out a survey. What services do you offer? We want to help you showcase it. So I went back and looked at like the last 1,000 surveys, the last 1,000 vet clinics that signed up. And under services, almost none of them wrote senior pet care, end of life, euthanasia, in-home euthanasia. And I thought to myself, okay, so let's connect some dots here. I was unhappy with the communication around his prognosis and, medical situation and death. And, I started making calls. I started, I have a friend who's the dean of a veterinary college. Called her. I said, hey, let me tell you how I'm feeling. Let me tell you what I just found in my own customer data. And explain this to me. She said, dude, in 4 years of vet school, we have maybe 3 to 4 hours of end of life training at all. Talked to another dean of a veterinary school. And he said, do you know that 3 out of 4 vets graduate veterinary school having never performed a euthanasia and never even like knowing what to say to people about their pet's prognosis? So that was like last November. And then I was a keynote speaker at London Vet Show. So I was there. I was supposed to give a big talk on technology. And instead I just talked about Baxter and made 250 people cry. Sorry about that if you're watching this. And I realized, okay, no one's built anything for this, which is weird. There's tens of billions of dollars coming into the pet space, and yet we want to sell them insurance, and we want to sell them food, and we want to sell them chews and toys and fresh food, but we don't really care about them when they're old. And we don't really care about them when they're gone. Less than 3% of companies have pet bereavement policies in place. So, I just kept seeing all this stuff and I was like, oh my God, okay. So, no one's doing anything. So I had ideas, after Baxter passed away, my wife and I wanted to find something to memorialize him. We couldn't find anything. We found like cheapy stuff and, like nice stuff on Etsy, but not like anything that was like, wow, this is this guy who meant the world to me and this is how he's going to live on forever. So, for a long time, I thought it was just going to be a memorial store. And then, my background's in SEO and marketing. So I did this like scrape of the entire internet and I found 187,000 keywords that people use around pet end of life. And to be honest, no one owned them, meaning there wasn't like one site where they went to. It was just scattered around. So I started thinking about it and researching, and I started creating posts and doing research and writing posts, not knowing what I was doing through like the end of the year, just kind of like writing. And then I woke up one day, I'm like, I have like 3,000 word posts on end of life. This is really incredible. So I sent them to a bunch of vets and got some vets to help me and, correct some stuff. And they were like, dude, you need to publish this. So, last year I started building it and it was just going to be a resource center. And then I said, well, a lot of people are asking for help. So we need a directory. So, I won't bore everyone with the whole thought process, but today, July 9th, Love Baxter launch has changed a lot in the last couple months. And, if you go to lovebaxter.com, there are just endless thousands of pages and resources on pretty much anything that people are going through, how to handle losing an emotional support pet, how to be there for a friend. We have text message templates to send. We also, in honor of Sophie, and Baxter was 12 and a half. We have a whole section on senior pets with hundreds of articles on, how to extend your pet's life, things to know, pain scales, things like that. So in its core, Love Baxter is just this mega 30,000 page resource that's free. You can search anything and I see what people search every day. And if someone searches something that we don't have, like the other day, someone searched for rigor mortis. and we didn't have a post about it. So that was like the first thing I did the next day was like, okay, let me go research what happens to your pet's body after die. And I created a post, and now that lives there. So, you know, that's kind of the plan now is what are people searching online and on Love Baxter? Do we have enough content to cover it? If not, we create it. So we have that. The next thing is we have a directory, which is great. You know, we launched July 9th. It's hard to have a directory that people trust. So it was kind of dead for the first couple months. And I can tell you that last week alone, I think we had 50 messages go out to people on the directory from people searching for them. So I'm watching that slowly tick up to hopefully we get to a point where it's 50 to 100 a day. And it's like a true lead generation for grief counselors, pet photographers, things like that. We have a memorial store. Same thing. I don't want to create products. So I went and found like 25 brands. Some of them did pet end of life stuff. A lot of them weren't. And I just said, I really love your products. You know, we have sweatshirts where you can send in a photo and they make you this like beautiful sweatshirt with Baxter's face on it. I said, hey, I love your products. Could you make me one with like a halo or wings? And they were like, yeah. So we sell a bunch of those. And and we've got, just stuff for everyone, and it's just really cool, and I'm building like 10 new things into it going into the new year. So that was my really 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 long answer. If you're out there listening, I'm sorry if that was boring, but tell your friends to go to lovebaxter.com.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Resources can be really difficult to find, and what often happens is that we come to a point in life where we need more information, and we struggle to find it. But it could be because we've never had the situation before. We don't know where to start. We don't know where to look. So knowing that there's one really comprehensive place, it's like people wish that probably there was something like this for everything, So
Yeah.
especially to be able to have it for pet loss because it is really common, and if we're someone who likes having a pet in our life, then we know we're gonna go through this again and again. I've lost a dog suddenly. I've had dogs I've had to, make the decision to euthanize. I mean, and it's all hard. And it brings up a lot of different feelings that come with it, and there's a lot that you kinda sit with afterwards. Um, so I think even just having those types of things to explore would be really, really helpful.
Well, if you talk to any in-home euthanasia vet, and I had about 500 who use my software, we've got a lot on the Love Baxter platform now. They'll tell you that 95% of their calls are someone calling saying, I need you today.
Mm.
There is no planning around pet end of life, which is why it was important to put senior care into this as well. Because we lost Baxter suddenly. I mean, he started having issues in April, and we lost him in October. But I mean, it was a chaotic couple months, and then he was gone in an instant. Sophie, we've thought Sophie has 1 month left for 3 years.
Mm.
And since Baxter died, I've refused to travel. I will not leave her. So my wife and I have this running joke that like she's going to live to 30 just to like prove a point, because that is very much her personality, just punching the couch at 30 years old. But you know what? We have such a good plan in place for Sophie. And I think for a lot of pet parents, that's like the worst thing you'd ever want to do is have a plan in place. But I can tell you, I say this a lot. Losing Baxter the way we did at 12 and a half when there's a picture on the Love Baxter site on our about page of he was at a Boston Terrier French Bulldog meetup in LA a month before he was gone. And I swear to you, he was the craziest dog at the beach that day. I mean, he was all over the place. And then he was just gone. That's sad. Like that's hard to take.
Mm.
Sophie, at her age, Bostons don't live to be almost 16. So when she goes, we'll be sad, but we've had 3 years to prepare for it, and we've said our goodbyes, and we had a bucket list of things, which we have on lovebaxter.com too, but we have a bucket list of things we want to do with her, and we've done them all. And we had about 3 days to figure out how much of that we could do with Baxter, and so yeah, it's hard. But I think going through this too, it's the same thing. We don't think about it for humans.
Mm.
You
Right.
don't think my spouse is going to die. My kids are going to die. We have 2 people in our life whose kids have died. I mean, that's really, really hard. I cannot imagine that type of pain. So if you don't prepare for it, if you don't talk about it, it just gets really hard. And we had a recent Love Baxter post. It's called The Deal We Make. And we had 5,000 messages come into Love Baxter in December. I responded to all of them myself. That was really hard. Uh, most of them said, "I don't want to live. I hate this. I don't want to be here anymore. It happened so suddenly. I can't believe this happened." And I think that was like the reoccurring theme was, "I can't believe this happened." But you know, I need vets and I need other pet professionals to make that more of a common thing. Hey, like Sophie's almost 16. I would like vets when you go in with an 8-year-old dog to say, your dog's 8. We're at the end. They could live another 8 years, but this is a hard conversation we're about to have. Costs are going to go up. Food's going to change. Medication's going to change. It's going to be expensive. I want you to be prepared for that. And no one's prepared for that. And, you both, meet with people who deal with human death. I can tell you my wife's aunt passed away a couple months ago, and it didn't seem like there was a plan. Does she want to be buried? Does she want to be cremated? And I don't think they ever talked about it. And they all handled it. They were a tight knit family, but I think it did cause a little bit of angst amongst her kids and her husband for a few days. So, I just think better planning goes into all of it, including I need to know that I'm probably going to need grief support at the end of this, and finding people now for when it happens is not a bad thing.
Yeah, I think it's so important that the vets have these resources. My nephew's pre-vet, and he works at a local vet hospital. And because of me, he was like, they didn't have any grief resources. He calls me Lolly. They had nothing, Lolly. Like, he's like, so I typed up something and I made sure I didn't include the 5 stages because I knew you'd be mad at me about that, And, but he's like, and they weren't doing sympathy cards. He's like, so I'm making them do that as well. Like, it's like,
I mean, it's actually really, I love vets. I've dedicated, the last 15 years of my life to helping veterinarians, but oh my God, they are so bad at end of life. And they were never taught. I mean, there was a study done. They said 4% of veterinarians, and part of the study, felt like they were prepared to actually handle a euthanasia appointment, and 3% felt that they were prepared to communicate with the family and offer support at the end of their life. So you've got, 97 out of 100 vets who aren't doing this. And yet, 50% of all pets in the US are seniors, and 35,000 cats and dogs die every day in the United States alone. So it's just there's a bad connection here when billions of dollars are being tied into sell, when everyone on the other side knows that these pets aren't going to make it. So, I'm so glad your nephew did that, but man, it's, I kind of closed my eyes when you said it, because it's like, it's the norm, and that sucks.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I just think about the vet we used, obviously that's his business, but just the little things he did, the touches he, added to
Yeah.
that, the piece of hair that he cut off, the little stone with their name on it that he left,
Yeah.
the donation he made afterwards in memory of them, and just the cards and the emails and the phone calls checking in. Like, it was just, and that's why I started doing a pet loss group for him because, like, I was just so grateful for him. And it made a difference. And he left us really, really good materials. Like, of course, I looked them over before to check them out, but I was like, they were all really appropriate. And just to have that support was huge, and it really does make a difference, because I was
Right.
like you. After PJ died, our Karen Terrier, he died very suddenly and unexpectedly. We always thought Boomer was going to go first, and that's what I write about in the grief experience book was PJ. And it was so shocking and difficult, and such a hard decision to know that, like, we have to make this call. Like, and we needed them today. It was just that.
Yeah.
And now I totally lost where I was going with my train of thought, but because I'm
No,
going
no,
back to
I
that.
mean, when you and I first met, and you sent that book, and then, I read that, and I was like, wow, because it was the same thing. Sophie got super sick in 2023, and her blood work was like, she's gonna die, and she was telling us like, we're gonna die. And what was tough was, I remember like looking up to the sky and just saying like, I'm not losing her. I will do whatever, and we did whatever it took. And we had an amazing vet who's getting ready to retire, and I was like, let this be your last case. Do not let my girl die. And here she is still. So I think with Baxter it was tough, because I just thought, no, I could will Sophie to. And by the way, this morning Sophie was at the beach, running around, smiling, happy, at almost 16. And I really thought we could do the same with Baxter. I thought I know too many people. I was overnight at the emergency clinic, and I was like, we will fix this. And I think that's why he made it 6 months. But yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And not everyone's in a position to do all that, which makes it really hard too.
Before we jump back into the episode, we want to share something that's really close to both of us. The Grief Experience, Tools for Acceptance, Resilience, and Connection, is not only a powerful book, it's actually how we met.
We were two of the 25 authors who came together to write this collection. Each chapter offers a personal story about grief, different relationships, different circumstances, different ways people try to make sense of life after someone they love died. Readers tell us these stories feel honest, compelling, and surprisingly reassuring. Many say it helped them feel less alone in what they're carrying.
What makes this book unique is that it doesn't stop at the story. Each chapter ends with a practical tool, something the reader can use right away. One reviewer said the suggestions at the end of the chapter became a lifeline when they weren't sure what to do next. If you're looking for grounded support, or you're a therapist wanting to understand better the reality of grief from many angles, this book offers connection, clarity, and real guidance, not cliches.
You can find The Grief Experience on Amazon, and we'd love to get your feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the things that we like to talk about, Adam, is celebrating their life. And I think obviously what you're doing every day by creating this resource for our community and for the world is amazing. But what other ways do you celebrate Baxter's life? And I would love for you to share what you did on the first anniversary of his death, because I
Yeah.
just,
So it was, I mean, that was that was like, not only, again, I haven't dealt with death, and like I said, I'm just not like a happy, sad person. And maybe I wasn't, now I am, but Baxter had a favorite bakery, and we would do all of his birthdays there. And it was by our house, now we're like a couple miles away. And we went to the bakery, which is called Top Dog Barkery in Huntington Beach, California. And I went to them, and they knew Baxter and they know Sophie. And I said, hey, w- we have a rescue group we work with near our house, and I want to do something for the dogs there. So we had Baxter cookies made. One said love, one said Baxter, and the colors from the Love Baxter website. And they were Baxter's favorite cookies. So we had those made. We went to the shelter, and we just spent a couple hours with dogs, playing with them, giving them Baxter cookies, doing some donation stuff. And there's a lot of cats there, and our cat Nala was Baxter's best friend other than me. And we brought a bunch of churu sticks, and my wife just like sat in the cat room and was just like covered in cats, giving them all this treat. But it was great. These dogs are, Baxter may have ended up dead or there, and it was just really cool to spend a few hours. I mean, there were so many things we talked about doing. We said, oh well, let's go down to the beach, and we took him to the beach on his last day, and we just like literally were just like holding him because he couldn't stand, and just laid him in the sand and just like let him listen to the waves. So we said, well, let's go down there. I said, but then we're not helping animals. And I think this was a good first year because we did that. And then his vet hospital, Modern Animal, they were so great. They were like the step before he went to the internal specialist, where we fought for a few months for his life and had some communication issues. But yeah, we brought Modern Animal and that team there, who's so great to us, like a giant breakfast. I asked them, I said, where's your favorite breakfast place? They told us. So I said, tell me what everyone wants. We went and brought it and just thanked them for everything they did for Baxter. And it was a fun day. It was like a 6-7 hour day. And, we came home and took Sophie, and we have another Boston in the house named Cosmo. We took Sophie and Cosmo on Baxter's favorite walk, and it was just a cool day. My wife and I talked about him all day, and talked about funny things he did. So it was cool. And now that it was kind of like stage one, in the future, I would like to do like national things for Love Baxter Day every year on October 28th. I mean, I ran a national dog rescue, and I work with all these vets. So that's kind of the plan moving forward. It was, I just want to I want to honor him. I mean, he's still my everything.
I love that. Thank you so much, Adam. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's the idea that we can do big things, we can do little things, and on a daily basis, we can do things on a bigger scale one time a year. I think we're just always trying to maintain that connection, and feel close to them in some way. So, Adam, as we're kind of closing out here today, we always like to leave people with something that they can do, some sort of action task, something that could help them, really starting today. So it sounds like you're probably often giving advice and responding, to people that are struggling with pet loss. So what is something that you would say to someone who has lost a pet and is really struggling to get through? What could help them that they could do or take a step with today?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly think step one, I did a bad job of this in the first couple weeks, and then I really figured it out. It's just really go above and beyond to take care of yourself,
Hmm.
mentally and physically. Like I was struggling with that. I mean, it was either 4 or 5 days in. I think by that first weekend, my wife was like, "Okay, man, you are I need you to eat. I need you to function." Because I was just, and my wife has only seen me, I was building my first company when we first met. So she's only ever seen me as like this like person who works 20 hours a day and can just like power through anything. And now I can't eat and am a very like clean person and was like skip showers for a day and not eat and not get outside, and it was just a mess. So yeah, I mean, I really think like just taking care of yourself and doing some of those like little rituals are just really important. And I would say the thing that's helped me, it was really hard in the beginning and I've almost cracked 3 times in the last 30 minutes, is just I like to talk about him to people. I like to tell stories about him. It's like I put out messages asking people, hey, I bring my dogs everywhere. If we all have iPhones. If you've taken photos of Baxter, and can you send them to me? And in December, within 6 weeks of him dying, I found an old computer. I went to Apple and I had them like crack it for me and pull the photos off. And I found thousands of Baxter's puppy photos that I thought I had lost. And so I had all those and all these photos pouring in from friends and family, people I haven't seen in years. So, I just think that was probably one of the best things I did was like, okay, I'm going to go get all of the photos of him. It really helped because I would like see photo and all of a sudden this memory would like be really strong in my head. Something I did not remember. Oh, I didn't remember that day, but that was the most fun day. I remember there was a day in Denver and someone had given us a hoodie that had like dinosaur spikes on it. And we took him to an art festival in Denver and everyone was going crazy over him. And someone sent me a photo of him in this, this dinosaur thing. And I was like, oh my God, I've totally forgot about that day. So it like really helped me perk up too. Cause I think right after they die, we sit there and we're just like, they're gone. Everything is dark. This is horrible. And if you get to like go watch the movie of their life, I call it, and just sort of like relive those moments, like like a TV montage, I mean, it really helps. So I started like cataloging his life. I started putting them into folders, and now I have like this full thing of his life. I can go look at any year and think about trips we took, and we had some photos of him framed and put up in the house, and we had some art made of him. So we just did a lot of cool stuff. But yeah, I would say step one is taking care of yourself, and step two is you know whether it's a scrapbook, whether it's digital, just go put something together that celebrates the great times, because man, I still struggle. I still am so hung up on the final week and the issues we had that week that sometimes it clouds the 12 and a half amazing years we had together with, every day was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great advice. And it depends on where someone is in this journey. And sometimes all we can do is just take care of ourselves. It's kind of like you're in this survival mode in the very beginning because it just happened. You're in shock and, there's
Yeah.
so much emotion. In time, I think it is trying to focus more, stretching it out. You had a whole, their whole life with them. And rather than just focusing on the really tragic and traumatic parts at the very end, things that we questioned, could I have done more? Should I have done something differently? We want to kind of pull back and think about all the other stuff too. So I think that that's definitely great advice. And there's ways to do it through pictures and stories and just talking and sharing. So,
Yeah.
Adam, that's great. Thank you so much. So, I know we've talked about Love Baxter, but tell us anything else you want to share in terms of how people can get in touch with you, or anything that you want them to know about what you're doing, or anything you have coming up.
Yeah, it's lovebaxter.com. We're on social media. In most cases, it's at Love Baxter Co. We've added 2,200 Instagram followers in the last 30 days. So I feel like we're hitting on something right now through the holidays, which is good. But yeah, look, I would tell you this: if you have a pet, the best thing you can do is just prepare. And it's so hard to do that. And they might be two, and you're like, I don't need to think about this. But as we all know, tomorrow is not guaranteed. And the last the the 3 days before Baxter died were the worst 3 days of my life, and the final 24 hours my wife and I just literally froze time. And I'm so happy that she and I were able to like be on the same page and just do everything he needed in those final 24 hours. So it was a hard week, but it was a very good final 24 hours, and we got to say goodbye the right way. And as Kelly said, sometimes it's you call him and it's I need you right now, and that's pretty common. So, you know, it's hard to prepare, but we have a lot of stuff on the site: questions to ask vets, how to know it's time, pain scales. We just published a workbook on, there's like a template for a journal on measuring good days versus bad days, because at some point, you know, like right now with Sophie, there's 7 days in a week, 5 are good, one is okay, and one is kind of mixed. I need to know that when we get to 2 is not good and 5 are good, or 3 is not good and 4 is good, I need to start making decisions, and that's hard to do unless you're prepared for it. So, if you have a pet, or if you have friends who have pets, tell them to come. It's a free resource, and, a lot of great people on our directory that can help.
Great.
Well, thank you, Adam, so much. This has been really helpful, and I think it's going to be able to help so many people. And I just absolutely love what you're doing with Love Baxter. And thanks so much for coming on here.
Yeah, thank you both. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on The Grief Ladies.
Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work.
If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you.
And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.